Good Monday morning, everyone. And I'm out in the living room today. I don't know if you can see it, but Constance has added some curtains over there, and the dining room is starting to look very, very cool. I won't show you the whole thing because I don't have permission to yet, but I'm out in the living room. What's that, dear? Uh-oh. We're about to hear from the oracle. Did you want to say something, dear?
Did you say something, dear?
Oh, yes. I was saying complimentary thing.
I can't hear you because of the washing machine.
I was saying loving and complimentary things about you. She doesn't believe it. Anyway, on my walk this morning from coffee, I'm just pulling today's little talk here just off the top of my head because so many things sort of fell into place in my mind on the walk home that it might not make very much sense to you. We've all heard about the term synchronicity, and the idea really came home when Bob Wilson and the Illuminatus trilogy and things like that, talking about synchronicities and magic. And I've often said that you don't make magic your life, you make your life magic. Okay. And it's, in a way, that's a little inaccurate because you don't make your life magic. Your life is magic. Every nanosecond of your life is magic. What we think of as making your life magic is just every once in a while recognizing the fact that something incredibly magic is continually going on in your life. And that's where these little events of synchronicity and everything, coincidences and seemingly magical communications from beyond. We all know that there are plenty of colorful people on the street corners babbling incoherently, probably to them great truths. Okay, it's not for us to really judge unless they're assaulting us. But I want to give you a little example because back in 1975, I was a very young fledgling student of the occult. Okay, this was before I was in the OTO. I had just taken a few of the Rosicrucian Order Amorc lessons, and I had begun to. I had just joined BOTA, okay, the Builders of the Addendum, and taking their correspondence course in tarot. So I was just starting to scratch the surface of tarot and mysticism and such. And I ran across the Thoth Tarot deck at the Pickwick bookstore, one of the early 1970 editions, and mine was distributed anyway by Llewellyn even. So it was an early Thoth Tarot, and it had the OTO's promotional card in it with a post office box in Dublin, California. And I love that little lemon thing, the Lamin of the OTO, the diving dove and everything else. And I'd seen that diving dove on an Amorc pamphlet called The Celestial Sanctum, which is sort of a group meditation instruction booklet. And so the OTO had that Lamin on it too. So I figured, well, I recognize the symbol, and this is good. And it looked so cool, and the Thoth Tarot deck was so disturbingly beautiful. Anyway, I wrote the OTO, and it took that. This is probably in 1973 or so. And it was a long time before the OTO ever wrote me back. I wrote 2 or 3 letters that were just stupid. Kindly communicate to me as you will, but I'd only read a couple little Crowley things, and I wrote the OTO. Well, long story, less long. I finally got a letter back from who I'd later find out was Phyllis Seckler, and she and Grady McMurtry were married at the time and living in Dublin, California. And after multiple letters back and forth, so that they determined that I wasn't a mass murderer, or at least I had a good chance of not being a mass murderer, because she demanded my birth information so she could draw up a chart to see if it was a mass murderer's horoscope. And but anyway, they arranged a time on November 15th, coming up, 1975, for me to take my Minerval initiation in their garage, although I didn't know who these people were. I didn't have their real names or anything else. You've heard the story. But as is often the case in my adult life, I was flat broke and unemployed in 1975. I'd gotten out of the music business and into nothing else. And I didn't know where Dublin was. Okay. Finally, I figured out it was in the Bay Area, and I didn't have a car to even drive there, and I didn't have money for a bus ticket. So I took a couple of my precious books from my very small occult library, including Magical Ritual Methods by William Gray, and Tarot and the Bible by Corinne Helene. Now, at the time, I wasn't particularly impressed with Tarot and the Bible by Corinne Helene, because so much of it was out of whack as far as the attributes and of the tarot trumps. Okay. And the Bible stuff was, it was okay. I was interested in the mystical ends of the Bible, and she was a Christian mystic. But I wasn't particularly impressed with it. But it was a gorgeous book, and I probably spent baby food money to buy it. But I had a few other books. I didn't sell any of my Crowley books. But to get the bus ticket, I drove up to Fullerton, California, where there was a rare bookstore, rare and unusual bookstore that bought strange books. And indeed, they were strange books. In the window of the shop, they had a like a 1817 or something edition of Pilgrim's Progress, bound in human skin. It was a weird little bookstore. But anyway, I sold my tape recorder to a friend. I took these books to the Fullerton bookstore and sold them, and got enough money, scraped together enough money for my bus ticket. And that bus ticket obviously changed my life forever. Okay. Not only that, but it opened up all sorts of other things that my life would bring me, including my involvement in tarot and Kabbalah and magic, things like that. So 1975, the year all of this happened, the beginning of my magical career. And unbeknownst to me, there was a young man living in Fullerton who bought both of those books. And he bought them in, there's my book plate I had in it that I put in there in 1972 or something like that. And Richard Wardell bought this in November 75. Well, on November 15th, 1975, I was up in Dublin, California, getting initiated. Well, I sort of spoiled the thing, because in 1991, after I had a lodge of OTO, Constance and I had a lodge of OTO, teaching magic, this young man, who is now considerably older, was a regular initiate of our lodge, Rick Wardell. And in 1991, he said, "Return to Lon and Constance after 16 years of being held captive in my library. Best to you both, best wishes for another 16 years of friendship. Warmly, R.W." Okay. Isn't that sweet? Okay. Now, this has been in my library because it's still a beautiful, beautiful hardbound book, but I haven't given it much attention. Okay, other than the fact that it is talismanically, this paid for the beginning of my magical career and magical life. And today, walking home from the coffee shop, I thought, I'm ignoring my own advice about observing everything in my life being a magical event. I haven't exploited the oracular wonders that might lay in this book, patiently waiting in this book for me to look at it. So I came home, and I thought, well, first of all, I need to know a little bit more about Corinne Helene. And I just Wikipedia'd her. Okay, there's her picture. Very theosophical looking gal. She died in 1975. Don't know the date, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't hovering around the same time that I was selling this book and Rick was picking this book up. But I'm speculating. born in Atlanta, Georgia, into the prominent Duke family. Now you can imagine throughout my years, Duke has been one of my nicknames. And my father's name was Duke also. In the aristocracy of the Old South in 1882, Corinne Helene became a lifelong student of the ancient mysteries at a very young age. As a small child, she attended a Methodist church, but was drawn into a Catholic church across the street, where she spent many hours visiting and admiring a beautiful statue of Mary, Mother of Jesus. While she had teachers on the physical plane, she received her greatest inspiration from those she called inner plane immortals, who overshadowed all her writings. Closest to her were the great of these great beings was Madonna Mary, who she called the light of her life. Classical education, she became a theosophist, naturally, and a friend of Max Heindel, and was part of the Rosicrucian Fellowship down in Oceanside, which I used to drive by all the time on the way to San Diego. Well, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but she was sort of fascinated and felt it was her duty to explore the wonders, the mystical, magical wonders of the Bible. And that's sort of the idea behind the tarot in the Bible. Now, at this time, early in the 20th century, late 19th century, where occultists were drawing connections between tarot and the Kabbalah. So we've got all sorts of people interpreting, say, Eliphas Levi's assignment to the Hebrew alphabet, to the tarot cards, which to the modern eye is slightly out of whack, perhaps in respect of occult secrecy of different orders that were teaching this stuff. And this is one of the reasons why I sort of dismissed this book, because I immediately saw things that were very, very un-BOTA-ish, un-Crowley-ish attributes, like the hanged man is attributed to Lamed, and things like that. Okay, but she penned beautiful exegesis on all of these subjects that are just full of wonderful observations and great truths that that require only a little bit of tinkering on my part to say, well, she's saying this about this card, and it's perfectly true, but it's perfectly true about another card. Anyway, so in my synchronistic thing, as I was getting ready to think, what am I going to talk about today? I said, well, I'm going to open up the book and see if I do have a message. And I opened the book, and it literally fell open to Lamed. Now, Lamed is my initials, okay? I've done a whole hoax on Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford. Lamed. There's a Lamed. Okay. It's a justice card. Lamed. And Lamed is spelled L M D, or Lamed Mem Dalet. Okay. Yeah, I'm going somewhere with this. Don't give up yet. Here's what she says about Lamed, because she attributes Lamed to the Hanged Man. And on my particular deck, the Hanged Man is the Hanged Lawn. Sacrifice. See, sacrifice. But she's attributing a Lamed to it. Sacrifice is the key word of Lamed, the 12th letter of the Hebrew alphabet and the 7th of the single letters. Numerically, its value is 30, which is the round number of Earth years in Saturn's orbital revolution. In the picture which represents Lamed resembles the astrologer's symbol for Saturn. And you know, damned if she's not right. Okay. Let's see. The sign of the scales. Let's see. As 7th of the singles, Lamed associates with the sign of Libra, the sign of the scales of law and equilibrium, which the planet Saturn is exalted. Okay, so she's talking about the right stuff with Lamed. She's just attributing the sacrificial thing for the mem, or the hanged man. Physiologically, Lamed is associated with the kidneys, the bodily organs for purification, astrologically ruled by Libra, the sign of balance. The Gnostics said that Libra was the birth sign of the new Adam. Now, I'm looking for personal things here, okay? You might not get the same significant meaning. Lamed embodying the vibrations of 12, because, okay, she's associating it with 12 and the hanged man still here. Marks a state of cosmic consciousness, for it implies the complete conquest of the personality when subjugated by the forces of spirit. This work requires a preparation that is long and arduous, taking many earth lives for its consummation. Those who have made any progress upon the path know how difficult it is to subdue personal inclinations. Self truly becomes the dweller on the threshold for the average individual. Now, I'm reading this all these years later, nearly 50 years later. Goethe, who was an occultist as well as a writer and scholar, has stated that some attributes may be developed by solitude and seclusion, but the character can be built only through contact with our fellow beings in the everyday busy world. Many think when they take up spiritual studies that it is needful to spend much time in seclusion devoted to mystical dreaming. This, however, is only a small part of the great work, for it is only as we learn to give of ourselves in loving, self-forgetting service for the upliftment of others that we begin to make any real spiritual progress. Max Heindel traveled far upon the illuminated path when he wrote, quote, "An elder brother will only grasp my extended hand when I extend my other to the younger ones coming behind me, in order to lead them to the temple door. This will open to them if they seek prayerfully, if they knock persistently, and if they work manfully." Okay. Now, that for me today contained an incredible amount of insight, food for thought, and assurance. But I thought, well, what does she say about justice, or the justice card? And she attributes it correctly to 8. The 8th Arcanum shows a maiden holding an uplifted sword, symbol of truth. In the other hand, she holds the scales of balance. One of the most dramatic episodes recounted in the Egyptian Book of the Dead is that of the weighing of the heart when the soul comes to judgment soon after death. The weighing of the heart determines his place, whether it is to be in the upper or lower abodes with gods or demons. Very theosophical. The symbolic weighing of the heart bears an interesting significance for the occultist who understands that the seed atom of the physical body is located in the apex of the etheric heart and contains an indelible record of every thought, word, and deed that individual during his life, of that individual during his life. It is from this record in the heart that the values of each earth life are assessed at the time of death. Okay, and that goes on. The biblical story correlative to this theme is that of Belshazzar, king of Chaldea. Belshazzar was proud, haughty, and insolent. He showed his contempt for the Hebrew captives by commanding that the gold and silver vessels which had been used in the temple at Jerusalem were held sacred should be brought to his banquet hall, there to be used in scenes of wildest revelry. Calvary. The banquet hall there said to be used the splendor of the royal banquet with its throngs of guests, its flowers, the flowing of heavily perfumed wines, and the wild abandonment of merrymaking has long been the favorite theme of artists and poets. It was while the orgy was at its height that the mysterious hand appeared upon the wall and wrote in mystic script, many, M-E-N-E, many, tekel, oof, Arshin, which is translated, "Thou art weighed in the balance, and thou art found wanting. Thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians." Even as these letters were inscribed on the wall in letters of fire, the soldiers of Cyrus were surrounding the city and forcing an entrance through the canals whose floodgates had been opened from within to allow the waters to recede affording passage for the Persian troops. Okay, now, in just the surface interpretation of my little synchronistic oracle, I can't think of a better full stop punctuation point, exclamation point than the handwriting on the wall. Okay. So I said, well, maybe I better kind of share this way of seeing everything in your life as a direct communication of God to your soul. And hopefully you won't have to wait 48 years to appreciate that wisdom that can never be thrown away. It boomerangs in your face at all times. It's in your face at all times. And it is just up to you to figure out how to get out of your own way to listen to it. That's all I have to say for today. Are you still in there, dear? No, I hear her in the laundry room. Anyway, until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.